Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Thursday night Anamkara meditation program. With all my heart and with all my love, I welcome you to our program tonight, and really into my living room, because that's where we're broadcasting from. So always great to have you here each week as very loved and welcomed guests. So thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing the fullness of your presence, your divine presence. That's what our programs are all about. That's what sadhana and practice is all about, is knowing the fullness of that so we can live that moment by moment into the world. Bring the compassion, the love, the wisdom, the generosity, the patience and kindness that are our innate nature and live it into the world. So to do that, we have to go beyond the mind. The mind is the main obstacle. Because we get caught in identifying with the mind and all the things that go with that. So tonight is a particularly powerful practice because it's the fourth Thursday of the month when we do the Heart Sutra. And the Heart Sutra, from the Buddhist tradition, Buddha's words, is really aimed at cutting through that identification with the mind. Not the mind in a sense per se, it's our identification with it. We can watch the content of the mind play out, and if we're not identified with it, then we're free. So, but being able to get to that space of consciousness, that boundlessness of pure awareness that watches the mind with complete, unshakable equanimity, that watches the mind from a state of rapturous being, that's the gift of practice of sadhana. So tonight we're going to be getting into that practice. We're going to start with the opening mantras as a way to help the mind step down from the busyness of the day, the busyness of the week, and get more and more and more fully present. So the power of the opening mantras is, again, it's like a magnet, helping us be drawn to the center of our being, to that still point that is the very heart essence of who we are. So we'll chant the opening mantras as an invocation of that. And as a way of sort of drenching the mind in this sublime power that reverberates through mantra. It's Shakti, it's Kundalini. That's how we talk about it in the yogic system. We can call it Holy Spirit, we can call it divine consciousness, we can call it any number of different words. But that's the root power of mantra. So it's a power that's beyond the mind, and that's what's really needed to really soften and quiet the mind into absolute stillness, right? So we'll do the opening mantras and then sit for a few moments in that stillness to enjoy the gifts of that practice. Shri Mata Kali Devi Ki Jaya Gajananambo Ganari Sevitam Kapita Jambo Palacharu Bhakshanam Umasutam Shokam Vinashakarakam Namami Vigneshwara Parapankajam Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti 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 Shri Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai. once again, I welcome you with all my heart. Thank you for coming this evening. Shri Mata Kali Mahadevi Ki Jai, that invocation of the Great Mother. That's also the root essence of the Heart Sutra that we'll be getting into tonight. So the Heart Sutra is, it's a seminal chant text in what's known as the Prajnaparamita teachings. Those are the teachings of the highest transcendental wisdom. So this sutra is also known as officially, its title is Bhagavati, Mahaprajnaparamita Hridaya Sutra. Bhagavati, the great goddess, mother of all Buddhas, is Prajnaparamita, is this transcendent wisdom that's beyond everything, beyond all concepts, all dualities, beyond everything. It's what we also would refer to in the portal, the bindu, in the Mahakali Yantra, that void, that black spot that is symbolic of what all this appears from and dissolves into, and is simultaneously present when this is or isn't. It's beyond being, non-being, all categories. So it's not something the mind can approach. So we have to leave the mind behind. Now it's interesting, as we've been doing the Heart Sutra typically once a month, and there's a classic form of it that we've been doing as an English translation of that, and it's chanted around the world in many different languages. But interesting, the great Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh, many of your people are familiar with his teachings, especially on pieces every step of walking meditations. He was a real social activist in the Buddhist tradition about peace. He was a monk in Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and was instrumental in trying to shift our consciousness about that war and get that resolved. And just an extraordinary being, and his embodiment of Buddha nature, his steady wisdom. And Thich Nhat Hanh, back in 2014, wrote a letter to his students around the world, talking about having to kind of retranslate the Heart Sutra. And I'm going to read his letter, and then what his translation was, how he changed the classic translation of the Heart Sutra. Because what he talks about and some of the shifts that he made in the Heart Sutra translation are helpful for deepening our understanding of what the Heart Sutra is pointing towards. I say pointing towards because in the end, these are all words. Words can never do more than point to the moon. So we have to go beyond the words. That's the old Zen saying, don't confuse the finger for the moon. The finger points at the moon, it's not the moon. The words point at that state. Even in the Heart Sutra, as Buddha is trying to give words to the state of consciousness that's beyond words, that he's trying to invite people to know and enter in order to get free of all suffering. Remember, Buddha's mission was originally to find a way beyond all suffering, and then to be able to pass that way on to all other beings. And so as he's describing that state that he has experienced, a state that's already exists, that's fully there in you, here and now, as it was in everyone back in Buddha's time. It's not a new state, it's an eternal state, an unbreakable state, an unshakable state, beyond the mind. So words are always going to fail. And certainly when we're talking about looking at translations that happened several hundred years ago from different cultures, you can see how Thich Nhat Hanh is known by his students as Thai, kind of an affectionate word for teacher. So Thai's translation helps to kind of update our understanding of that. So I'm going to read his letter. You can find this all. This is all available online, so you can reference this for yourself later on. So this is Thai's message of explanation to his students, translated from the Vietnamese. Thai wrote this text on the 22nd of August 2014 after completing his very first translation draft in Vietnamese. Thai writes, "Dear family, Thai needs to make this new translation of the Heart Sutra because the patriarch who originally compiled the Heart Sutra was not sufficiently skillful enough with his use of language. This has resulted in much misunderstanding for almost 2,000 years. Thai would like to share with you two stories. The story of a novice monk who paid a visit to a Zen teacher, and the story of a bhikkhu who came with a question to the eminent master Tu Trong. In the first story, the Zen master asked the novice monk, 'Tell me about your understanding of the Heart Sutra.' The novice monk joined his palms and replied, 'I have understood that the 5 skandhas are empty. There are no eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. There are no forms, sounds, smells, tastes, feelings, or objects of mind. The 6 consciousnesses do not exist. The 18 realms of phenomena do not exist. The 12 links of dependent arising do not exist. And even wisdom and attainment do not exist.' The master says, 'Do you believe what it says?' 'Oh, yes, I truly believe what it says.' 'Come closer to me,' the Zen master instructed the novice monk. And when the novice monk drew close, the Zen master reached out with this thing and grabbed his nose and twisted it. And immediately the poor novice monk, 'Stop, please, teacher, you're hurting my nose.' The Zen master looked at the novice and said, 'Just now you said that the nose doesn't exist. But if the nose doesn't exist, then what is hurting?' Now the eminent master, Tu Trong, was a lay Zen master. This is the second story, who had once served as the mentor of the young king Thich Nhat Hanh in the 13th century Vietnamese. And one day, a bhikkhu paid him a visit to ask him about the Heart Sutra. 'Respected eminent master, what does the phrase, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, really mean?' At first the eminent master remained silent, and then after a while he asked, 'Bhikkhu, do you have a body?' 'Yes, I do.' 'Then why do you say that the body does not exist?' The eminent master then continued, 'Do you think that in empty space there is form?' 'No, I do not see that there is form.' 'Then why do you say that emptiness is form?' The bhikkhu stood up, bowed, and went on his way. But the master summoned him back in order to recite to him the following gatha, a verse. 'Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, is a skillful means created temporarily by the Buddhas of the 3 times. Emptiness is not form, form is not emptiness. Their nature is always pure and illuminating, neither caught in being nor in non-being.' Now in this story, the eminent master, Tu Trong, seems to contradict the Heart Sutra and challenge the sacred formula, form is emptiness and emptiness is form, considered inviolable in the Prajnaparamita literature. Thai believes that the eminent master went too far. The master was not able to see the mistake doesn't rest in the formula, form is emptiness, rather it resides in the unskillfulness of the line, therefore in emptiness there is no form. According to Thai, the way in which words are used in the Heart Sutra, right from the beginning up to the line, no birth, no death, not defiled, not immaculate, not increasing nor decreasing, is already perfect. Thai's only regret is that the patriarch who recorded the Heart Sutra did not add these 4 words: no being, no non-being, immediately after the 4 words, no birth, no death, because these 4 words would help us transcend the notion of being and non-being. And we would no longer get caught in such ideas as no eyes, ears, nose, no tongue. The nose of the poor novice monk is still sore, even to this day. Do you understand? See, the problem begins with the line, listen, Shariputra, because in emptiness there is no form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. How funny. It was previously stated that emptiness is form and form is emptiness. But now you say the opposite. There is only emptiness. There is no body. This line of the sutra can lead to many damaging misunderstandings. It removes all phenomena from the category being and places them in the category of non-being. No form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, or consciousnesses. Yet the true nature of all phenomena is the nature of no being nor non-being, no birth and no death. The view of being is one extreme view. The view of non-being is another extreme view. It is because of this unskillfulness that the novice's nose is still sore. Now, the famous Gatha ascribed to the 6th patriarch Huineng, in which he presented his insight to the 5th patriarch, Hoangnan, also expresses this notion and is also caught in the same wrong view. Originally, there is no Bodhi tree. The bright mirror does not exist either. From the non-beginning of time, nothing has ever existed. So where can the dust settle? You could see how the language and the way it's used, often particularly in the Zen tradition, is to confront these different categories of thinking and ways of creating identities that are caught up in that our ordinary mind operates in all the time. So what the Heart Sutra and what the practices are trying to really remove, and what these words and this sort of explication about it is trying to get us out of taking the categories of thought as real forms, getting identified with them, and caught and bound and suffering in them. Tai goes on to say, we can say a white cloud passes by and hides the mouth of the cave, causing so many birds to lose their way home. Now, the insight of the Prajnaparamita is most liberating insight that helps us overcome all pairs of opposites, such as birth and death, being and non-being, defilement and immaculacy, increasing and decreasing, subject and object, and so on, and helps us get in touch with the true nature of no birth, no death, no being, no non-being, which is the true nature of all phenomena. This is a state of coolness, of peace, and one of non-fear that can be experienced in this very life, in your own body, and in your own 5 skandhas. It is nirvana. Just as the birds enjoy the sky and the deer enjoy the meadow, so do the wise enjoy dwelling in nirvana. This is a very beautiful sentence in the Nirvana chapter of the Chinese Dharmapada. Now, the insight of the Prajnaparamita is the ultimate truth, transcending of all conventional truths. It is the highest vision of Buddha. Whatever paragraph in the Tripitaka, even the most impressive of the Prajnaparamita collections, if it so contradicts this, it is still caught in conventional truth. Unfortunately, in the Heart Sutra we find such a paragraph, and it is quite long. That is why in this new translation, Tai has changed the way of using words in both the original Sanskrit and the Chinese translation by Huan Trang. That Tai translates as follows: that is why in emptiness, body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are not separate self-identities. All phenomena are products of dependent arising. That is the main point of the Prajnaparamita teaching. Even insight and attainment do not exist as separate self-identities. This sentence is as important as the sentence form is emptiness. Tai also added no being and no non-being, no being and no non-being into the text. No being, no non-being is the deep vision of the Buddha stated in the Katyayana Sutra, where he offered a definition on right view. These 4 words, no being, no non-being, will help future generations not to suffer from a twisted nose. See, the Heart Sutra was intended to help the Sarvastivadins relinquish the view of no self, no dharma. The deepest teaching of the Prajnaparamita is the emptiness of self and the emptiness of dharma, and not the non-being of self and dharma. The Buddha has taught in the Katyayana Sutra that most people in the world are caught in either the view of being and non-being. Therefore, the sentence, in emptiness there is no form, feelings, is obviously still caught in the view of non-being. That is why this sentence does not correspond to the ultimate truth. Emptiness of self only means the emptiness of self, limited self, small s self, not the non-being of self. Just as a balloon that is empty inside does not mean that the balloon does not exist. The same is true with the emptiness of dharma. It only means that the emptiness of all phenomenon, and then not the non-existence of phenomena. It is like a flower that is made up only of non-flower elements. The flower is empty of separate existence, but that does not mean that the flower is not there. So the Heart Sutra made a late appearance at a time when Tantric Buddhism had begun to flourish. The patriarch who compiled the Heart Sutra wanted to encourage followers of Tantric Buddhism to practice and recite the Heart Sutra. So that's why he presented the Heart Sutra as a kind of mantra. This was also a skillful means. Tai has used the phrase, the insight that brings us to the other shore, because in the mantra there is the expression, paragate, which means gone over to the other shore, the shore of wisdom. Parayana and paramita have both been translated as crossing over to the other shore. In the Sutta Nipata, there is a chapter called Parayana, which has also been translated as crossing over to the other shore. So, dear family, I hope you enjoy practicing the new version of the Heart Sutra in English. We have an English translation, and Brother Potlin is in the process of composing music for the new chant. The next edition of the chanting book will include the new translation. Yesterday, on the 21st of August, after finishing the translation at about 3 a.m., a moon ray penetrated Tai's room. With love and trust, your teacher. That was Tai's letter to his students about this new translation. I'm going to read the new translation. And again, he calls it The Insight That Brings Us to the Other Shore by Thich Nhat Hanh. Avalokiteshvara, while practicing deeply with the insight that brings us to the other shore, suddenly discovered that all the 5 skandhas are equally empty. And with this realization, he overcame all ill-being. So you see, he substituted ill-being for suffering. Listen, Shariputra, this body itself is emptiness, and emptiness itself is this body. This body is not other than emptiness, and emptiness is not other than this body. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Listen, Shariputra, all phenomena bear the mark of emptiness. Their true nature is the nature of no birth, no death, no being, no non-being, no defilement or purity, no increasing or decreasing. That is why in emptiness, body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are not separate self entities. The 18 realms of phenomena, which are the 6 sense organs, the 6 sense objects, and the 6 consciousnesses, are also not separate self-entities. The 12 links of interdependent arising and their extinction are also not self-entities. Ill-being, the causes of ill-being, the end of ill-being, the path, insight, and attainment are also not separate self-entities. Whoever can see this no longer needs anything to attain. Bodhisattvas who practice the insight that brings us to the other shore see no more obstacles in their mind, and because there are no more obstacles in their mind, they can overcome all fear, destroy all wrong perceptions, and realize perfect nirvana. All Buddhas, in the past, present, and future, by practicing the insight that brings us to the other shore, all are capable of attaining authentic and perfect enlightenment. Therefore, Shariputra, it should be known that the insight that brings us to the other shore is the great mantra, the most illuminating mantra, the highest mantra, a mantra beyond compare, the true wisdom that has the power to put an end to all kinds of suffering. Therefore, let us proclaim a mantra to praise the insight that brings us to the other shore. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha. So that's the great Thich Nhat Hanh's new translation, not brand new, but revision to try and capture the understanding that getting caught in the words, and especially the words like emptiness itself, when even that, because he still uses emptiness, we have to understand emptiness means it has no root eternal existence, independent of anything. Everything that we see is dependent on some other thing, going back and back and back and back. We can see the interdependencies that create the phenomenon in the moment, that created phenomenon in the past, that will create phenomenon in the future. So it's hard to say, so where's the birth point? Where's the end point in a continuous flow of these interdependent arisings that are ephemeral? They're empty of solid eternal nature. The only thing that is eternal is that boundless awareness, the awareness itself that perceives these ephemeral comings and goings of the mind and the world, sees the ephemeral nature of the mind as it clings and creates identities that go with these various structures that it then believes in and gets engaged with. So ultimately, it's going beyond everything. It's removing everything. It's the same thing that mystics of all traditions have talked about. How in the end, words and what they seem to point to as if those things really exist, the concept was real, or then the obstacle to knowing what's beyond that concept. So that's why Meister Eckhart would say the last obstacle to God is God. Why? Because the word God, the belief in God, the images, whatever arises and is invoked as our notion of God isn't God. It's the mind's construct. However sublime that might be, however inspiring that might be, if we want to know the truth of that boundless, infinite being as the root of all reality, as the root of who we are, we have to go beyond them all names, all forms, everything, being, non-being, both, neither, beyond. So finally, in the end, at best we can say, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha, gone beyond, completely beyond. Hail the goer, bodhisattva, you going into that pristine awareness that's fully present here and now. That the only thing that is standing between our immediate experience of that and what our ordinary experience is our attachment and identification with the mind and its content. Let go of that, and then you start to watch. And that's what Buddha's talking about. He's watching, and he sees in that infinitude of the spaciousness of awareness, the five skandhas, these forms arising and subsiding, and seeing their ephemeral nature, their emptiness. That is what sets one free from all suffering. Now when we say free of all suffering, we're meaning that consciousness is free of all suffering. It doesn't mean that, when the novice monk's nose was twisted by the Zen master, he wasn't suffering. That's the suffering that goes with this limited form. That suffering is part of that domain of reality. Now, it's mitigated by knowing the infinite nature of our true being. That empowers us to bear the suffering that goes with having these forms in this world. That's what empowers us to then confront the conditions that are creating suffering in the world. Whether we're taking on the fight for equality, the fight against racism, the fight for climate change, and dealing with those kinds of issues. When we're informed with the infinitude of our being, we then have the equanimity and the strength and the power to walk into the crucible of those kinds of domains and walk in with wisdom, with clarity, with strength, with presence. Because that's what the world needs. It doesn't need us just sitting in lotus posture or whatever and going into a samadhi state. It needs us being informed by that and walking that into all the domains where suffering exists. And there we can make a difference. Even if we can't get a person out of that, literally physically. Like when I used to do programs in federal and state penitentiaries and doing meditative practices with inmates, some who were serving life sentences without parole for horrible crimes. But their pain and their suffering was related to what they were identified with that drove them into those actions. And so they discovered they could get free, that there was a way to get free even within the confines of a cement and steel prison. So if people can get free there, what's our excuse? We have to give it dedicated practice. We have to be focused. We have to give it that attention. So now we're going to do the chant of the Heart Sutra. And so the way we do it, the Bhagavati Prajnaparamita Hridaya Sutra, we read through it 3 times aloud, and then at the end we'll be doing the Gate Gate Paragate chant with the harmonium. And we'll do a few rounds of that, and then just enter the stillness. The stillness. It's not being, it's not non-being. It's beyond them both. Just rest in the stillness. Watch the mind. You may go here and there. You're not the mind. You're that spaciousness, pure, luminous awareness that illuminates actions of the mind, things in the world. But you are that boundless, self-luminous awareness. So here we begin. Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva, coursing through deep Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Sensation, thought, impulse, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are marked by emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without gain, without loss. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, sensation, thought, impulse, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no realm of sight to no realm of thought, no ignorance and also no ending of ignorance, to no old age and death and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering and also no source of suffering, no annihilation, no path, no wisdom, also no attainment. Having nothing to attain, bodhisattvas live Prajnaparamita with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance, thus no fear. Far beyond elusive thinking, they attain complete nirvana. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, live Prajnaparamita and thus attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is the great mantra, the wisdom mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not deception. Therefore set forth the Prajnaparamita mantra. Set forth this mantra and say, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi Swaha. Avilokiteshvara Bodhisattva, coursing through deep Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all five skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Sensation, thought, impulse, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are marked by emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without gain, without loss. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, thought, impulse, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no realm of sight to no realm of thought, no ignorance and also no ending of ignorance, to no old age and death and also no ending of old age and death. No suffering and also no source of suffering, no annihilation, no path, no wisdom, also no attainment. Having nothing to attain, bodhisattvas live Prajnaparamita with no hindrance in the mind. No hindrance, thus no fear. Far beyond elusive thinking, they attain complete nirvana. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, live Prajnaparamita and thus attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is the great mantra, the wisdom mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not deception. Therefore set forth the Prajnaparamita mantra. Set forth this mantra and say, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi Swaha. Avilokiteshvara Bodhisattva, coursing through deep Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all five skandhas are empty, transforming all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, emptiness exactly form. Sensation, thought, impulse, consciousness are also like this. Shariputra, all things are marked by emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure, without gain, without loss. Therefore in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, thought, impulse, consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, object of thought, no realm of sight to no realm of thought, no ignorance and also no ending of ignorance, to no old age and death and also no ending of old age and death, no suffering and also no source of suffering, no annihilation, no path, no wisdom, also no attainment. Having nothing to attain, bodhisattvas live Prajnaparamita with no hindrance in the mind. No hindrance, thus no fear. Far beyond elusive thinking, they attain complete nirvana. All Buddhas, past, present, and future, live Prajnaparamita and thus attain anuttara samyak sambodhi. Therefore know that Prajnaparamita is the great mantra, the wisdom mantra, the unsurpassed mantra, the supreme mantra, which completely removes all suffering. This is truth, not deception. Therefore set forth the Prajnaparamita mantra. Set forth this mantra and say, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhi Swaha. Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasangate Bodhiswaha Gate Gate Parangate 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 Parasangate Bodhiswaha Gone, gone, gone beyond, fully beyond, hell the goer. Gone, gone, gone beyond, fully beyond, hell the goer. Gone, gone, gone beyond, fully beyond, hell the goer. Gone, gone, gone beyond, fully beyond, hell the goer. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhiswaha. 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 Om Tare Tuttare Ture Soha. 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 We end with this prayer. And may all our practices truly benefit everyone. And may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Gone beyond the mind. The other shore isn't somewhere else. We're already on the other shore. But we're lost in the illusion of the mind. So all the practices from all the traditions, different ways of talking about how do we let go of this clinging to the mind? How do we let go of the self-cherishing mind, the mind so involved and caught up in itself that it doesn't perceive that it's resting at all times, in all places, in that infinite divine embrace. Coming home to that. That's where all the practices invite us to know, across all the different traditions, different names, they're just different forms. They're lovely forms. We can delight in forms and how they can serve to help transform the mind. But ultimately, it's entering the stillness, just abiding in that. We try and call it something, boundless awareness. Another set of words. It's not that. It's beyond that. Beyond everything. Unimaginable, inconceivable, unspeakable. That's what the mystics of every tradition know. That's what is your innate capacity to know. And then knowing that, be empowered. To live it into the world for the benefit of all beings, to help relieve suffering in the world, so that we do the practices. Even the practices that we engage in aren't done selfishly, aren't done to just give some ultimate state to this little self. No, no. The great call is to know and then to serve. To know and to serve. To know the infinite as our own self and to serve that moment by moment. However we're called to do that in everyday life. So thank you. Thank you for being ones who do these practices, who have that commitment, and then live that into your everyday life, wherever you might be, family, work, everything. It embraces all. So thank you. Thank you for all the efforts that you make. So easy for the ordinary mind, again, to hold up, some measuring stick and then not measuring up. All your efforts count. All your practices are important. And then there's always ways to add more, to go more deeply, to be more drenched in love, and walk that into the world. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for the many ways you support Anamkara and sharing our videos and e-newsletters, making comments on them and liking them. That's also a way of helping us. It helps inform people and helps them to learn about what we're offering. So thank you for that. And thank you for your donations that help keep our work going. So with all my heart, with all my love, thank you for coming, and I look forward to seeing you next week.